Hello everyone, and we're going to pick up where we left off last time and talk a little bit about how a person can blend. So I showed a little bit on how you could use a little bit of smudging and a little bit of the erase to basically add a bit of a fall off look to some of your pieces. But what I like to do now is I just want to really focus on the blending element itself and also maybe show you a little trick or two that could be helpful once you actually have the blending done. So let's actually make ourselves a couple of elements that we could do for this. Now I'm going to use the Marquee tool and make myself a rectangle like so. And I'm going to fill this. I'm going to keep my my stuff very simple to get started with this. I'm just going to go with there we go. A little bit of black and white. There we are. So I'm going to take a bit of a lighter gray, and I'm going to fill it in over here. And I'm going to take that same rectangle, and I'm just selecting the Marquee again, and I'm going to bring that to the other side like this. And I'm going to actually darken that up. So I can go to my black, turn this way down, and just fill that in like so. Now again, they're different layers and such, so just something to kind of keep in mind. Now I'm also going to take this opportunity to copy this, because again, I want to show you more than one method of blending. So I'm going to call this first one over here smudging, so you can actually see this and how to approach this in detail. So smudge. And the other layer we're going to have here, this is going to be called simple blend. And it'll make a little bit more sense why we named these the way that we did momentarily. So smudge, you're going down. And simple blend, you're going to stay here. I'm also going to eventually make a circle here. In fact, I'm actually going to make that now. I'm going to put this at the midway point. Add a layer. And fill that in. Now the reason why I'm showing this now, to be perfectly honest, is because I really wanted to show how you could make these elements a little on the quick side yourself, so you have a chance to practice more and more. And we call this ball. Fantastic. Deselect. Okay, so the bottom one here, that's smudge, so just making sure that that's the right one. Nope, it is not, so that's okay. Actually, I could just simply fix this by just moving this up a layer. When possible, make your life easier. Okay, so my goal here is to try and blend these two sides together. Now this can be done in one of multiple ways. If you actually take a look on YouTube, you'll find probably tens, possibly hundreds of different methods of smudging or basically blending elements together. And whatever method that you find works best, I would say use that. The one that I'm going to use today is going to be one method that's going to be a little artistic. That's the smudge method, so you can see that in real time. And the other one that you're going to use is I'm going to use a simple soft brush and get a little bit more technical with that. And again, the nice thing about the smudge is, again, you really get to get in there with the colors and really mess around with them. But the con, you have to do that on the same layer. The blend method, which you're going to see, can actually be done on a separate layer, so that makes that a lot easier, but you also need a lot of patience. And it's also, as stated, a little bit more technical. As I said, I'm going to show both. Okay, so let's get this started. So I'm on the right layer. Yep, I am. Okay, so the first method, you can use the smudge for this. Now, I would strongly recommend either making a mask for this specifically, or alternatively, you can put a temporary marquee around the area that you want to blend together. I'll just do that. Actually, this should work. Yeah, I'm just going to do that again. Again, if it goes too far, you can always just delete the access and such. But the reason why I'm doing this is so that my smudge doesn't go beyond a certain point. Again, if you have the opportunity, a mask actually wouldn't be a bad idea, but I'll leave that to your own judgment. So just going to choose my little finger over here. And again, you'd want to make this a pretty big size and make sure that the hardness is pretty tiny. Okay. Now, what I would do usually is I'd try to use the end part of the brush, and I would just move this over slightly and just go over the entire line like this. Make sure it's all kind of seeping through. I'm going to go to the other side. And again, I'm using the end of the brush. That part's important. If you go in the middle, you're going to move way too much. We just want to add a little bit of subtlety to it. The hard part is making sure that your line still stays straight. And I'm going to go to the other side and repeat the process. The hard part is making sure that you don't go too far down or mess up other parts. Yep, there we go. But as you can see, the two areas are blending, which is basically what we want. Now, if it ends up going too far, this area ends up a little too light, you can always just push the original color a little bit more to the right to help you out with that. But the point is, try not to use the middle of the brush if you can. And again, just trying to get that end of the brush. We'll eventually get some pretty good blending results. Voila. Okay, so that's method number one. Again, pro in this, you actually get to have the colors blend together. But the con is the fact that you have to be on the same layer to do this. Let's go into a different method of blending. This different method, we're going to be using actually a soft brush for our little paint area. So you can select your brush here, you can go up to this area, and again, general brushes, soft brush. Make sure that the hardness is at 0. Again, you'll probably want to make sure that the size is pretty big. And what we're going to be doing for this case is we're going to be actually changing one little technical part. So I'm going to go over here, add a new layer, because you can do that. That's kind of nice. I could even call this blending. Although technically you can name that out whatever you want. The big thing you got to do with this, at least that I found that works really nicely, is you go to the opacity and change that to about 50%, give or take. And again, wouldn't be a bad idea to just put a marquee on the whole shebang, if possible. There we are. Oops, definitely don't want to do that. Okay, and I'm going to use the brush over here. And this is where, again, it gets very technical, because you need to use the Eyedropper tool, or just hit I first. You select your color, and then you hit B for the brush, and basically kind of go back and forth with this. So again, a little tricky, but it's worth it. So hitting the I, give this a little click, hitting B, and I'm going to just move my color over to the other side like so. Now it's not going to do this perfectly at first, but once that's done, I can go to this area over here, hit an I, then hit B, and then move this to the other side. The important part is the movement when you're doing this. Then once that's done, you hit I for Eyedropper. You don't control or know anything like that. Then hit B and paint over again. Try to mix both areas first. You shouldn't have to go all the way across. Just try to get as close as you can. And then once again, I in the fall off over here. Oops. Give it a click, B for brush, and just bring it over. So once you have an area that looks a little bit blended, like we have over here, then we're going to actually take the moment to blend these sections. So once again, gonna hit I, then B, and then you're going to I, give it a click, there we go, then B, and we're going to just use that fall off over here to blend these sections together. This is one of the reasons why it's so important to have the opacity at 50%, because we don't want this to be too much. So once again, over in this area, I hit I first, then B, and then bring this area over. And then the fall off over here, and then bring that over. So again, I, and then B, because I'm just trying to add that small last detail. I, and B. And that's pretty much it. So a little bit more adjustments and change needs to be done, but the nice thing about this as well is you can add a little bit of a fall off between one color to the other. It's going to take a little bit more time, but it's pretty much close to what I was hoping to show in this case. Now the last part that I want to show is how you could basically use the filter, very similar to what we used back in Illustrator. So what I mean by that is I could basically take this color that I have, turn this up a little bit, then I could use a circle similar to what I have over here. Make sure that actually is circled, by the way. And again, I usually try to make sure they're different layers, and I could fill this in like so. And once that's done, I can use the filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And there's some cases where you can just put in the blur like this. You can add a little bit of an interesting light effect to this, which is pretty awesome. And then you could do something, then once you actually have the rounder area like we have over here, you could add a shadow down in this area. Now once again, you could either use the filter like we've done previously, or just make a really big brush. I'm just going to select my color here, turn this way down, turn this way up, and just try and round this area out like this. So this actually works pretty well too. The only thing that kind of stinks about this is if you go well outside the area, you are going to have to erase that. So this method does require a little bit of patience, but as you can see, it is worth it. Well, at least I think it's worth it. And of course, if we still need to make adjustments and changes, you can use some of the blur elements and or the smudge to basically fix up the last parts. So if you need to blend colors a little bit, if you need to blend colors a lot, or if you want to just add shadows and light, there's lots of different ways that you can approach this. So with these three methods, technically it's three, hopefully you find a method that could work well for you. If not, a little bit of experimentation can make a huge difference in what you do. So that's pretty much most of the main stuff I wanted to show here. As a little bit of a bonus, I did want to show one last thing, and that is what would happen if you wanted to change the color of something that we have here. So this part's just a little extra, but again, say for example, we like working with grayscale, or black, white, and grays. And just so you can see the shadows, the darker and light areas a little bit easier. and say that you want to change the color afterwards. Well, you can do that. So what I'm going to do here, although it's a little bit dangerous, I'm going to right click here and I'm going to flatten, not flatten, I'm going to merge layers because you kind of need to do it for this next step. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try and select the entire circle here. Oh, that's actually not too bad, not too shabby. Cool. Now if I want to add a little bit of a different color to this, say for example, again, you want to basically work with black and whites and eventually add a color afterwards, well, you've actually seen how you could do this. Because once the colors are put together, and you basically merge your layers like I just did here, you can go to Image, Adjustments, and you can go to Hue and Saturation, use the Colorize option, and then basically make it whatever color you want. I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty cool. I'll explain the whole process one more time. Actually, I could do it a couple more times in case any of you wish to see this. But again, this is a method that people can use if you want to get those blacker areas, the lighter areas, and the shades just so perfect, and then put in the color as an afterthought. Now, bear in mind, this only works with simple colors. If you try and do something more complicated, it's not going to work quite as nicely. But it's, again, nice to have options. So I'm going to hit OK. So if you need to see that again, I'd be happy to show. So let's say that I want to make this stick into a different color entirely. Ideally, you want to zoom in as far as you can, but not too much, as you can see. And select the whole shebang. So this is my smudge layer, by the way. And I can go into my image, adjustments, hue and saturation, turn on colorize, and then just choose a color you want. So I'm going to make this a blue stick because I think that could be fun. There we are. And this one I'm going to make a yellow stick just because. Now in this case, once again, you have to make sure if you want to change the color on something, you have to make sure you change it on all the elements to it. So unfortunately, I would have to merge these two layers together. But if you want to be a little extra safe, it will take more resources, but it will guarantee that you'll be a little bit safer with this. You could basically take your layers, duplicate them, and these two originals can be safeties in case you're not sure if it'll work well or not. But now I can right click, I can merge my layers, and now I can to select what's only necessary. And then, although you shouldn't have to worry about this too much, because again, it's not going to go too much further outwards and such, but image adjustments, hue and saturation, going to make this more yellowish. Yeah, there we are. And you notice that nothing else beyond this really changes. What I've just done here is just an extra precaution, just because I like to be that way. But I can select this yellow. Oop, that wouldn't be the best idea. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. I'm kind of digging that, so I'm going to go with that. Cool. Well, I'm pretty happy with this. So, even though we started mostly with shades, I felt that being able to change your colors could be a helpful little thing that potentially could help you in the future. So, hopefully you found this useful. I do want to go over one last thing, and this is going to be mostly useful for anyone who might want to do their own physical drawings, for example, maybe for an OC or original character, and they might want to color it afterwards. So I'm going to actually show you how to do that, because that could be pretty fun. Okay, so hopefully you found this useful, and hopefully you'll take a look at the next one. All right, here we go.